Welcome.
Hello.
Whoa. Echoed.
Hey, that's a little jinx right there.
Welcome.
Hello. This is another edition of Reel to Reel.
Too real.
This time, we're going to be covering Clue. I think I saw it said 85, 87, something like that for the date on this.
Sounds about right.
Good old Clue. First instance that I can think of a movie being made when its basis is, a board game.
Board game, yeah.
We have the more recent Battleship,
Yep.
and I am blanking on any others. I know there's not any Mousetrap or Chutes and Ladders. There's definitely not a Don't Wake Daddy movie, because
that's what
I don't.
That's what I'm down for.
Don't Wake Daddy, because he'll beat you.
They made fucking Mousetrap with Mouse Hunt, right? With Nathan Lane.
Yeah,
It's
was
similar.
that
Is that a
like
direct adaptation? Though?
No, but I'm gonna
that
call
might
it.
not, no, he might not be wrong. That might be like a very loose, like based on the.
And that's actually
Huh.
a pretty well put together film.
Yeah.
I like Mouse Hunt.
I did too.
That's a pretty
was a good
well
time.
put together
Fucking
board
Christopher
game. Because
Walken in it.
Yep.
He's the fucking
Walking in
exterminator.
Winter Wonderland, dude.
that's a pretty well put together board game. Because A, you have to put it together, and B, it's fun as hell to make that trap go off and watch the
Rube Goldberg
machine that
We're jinxing
catches
it
the
up
little
here.
mouth in the mouth trap.
Well, I'm looking up movies based on board games.
Hi-Ho Cheerio, Don't Break the Ice is
Oh my
fucking-
god! If there was a Hi-Ho Cheerio movie, I would love. I played that so much as a child. Oh my god, I forgot about that game. You have to put your little cherries in the holes in the trees on the cardboard.
Cherries
and-
in the holes, dude.
You do. The cherries go in the holes.
So I mean, it depends on what you define as movies about board games, but like,
Okay. Why is there a distinction?
because there's like Ouija, the movie Ouija.
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah, it's like Parker Brothers. Right?
That's not
But
based
that's
on the
based-
movie. That's based on like the
That's
urban
them playing
legend.
Ouija board.
Ouija.
And then there's the double whammy of Jumanji and Zathura. But again,
those are
made-up
books based on like a board game type story.
games. Yeah. See,
But-
IMDb's rocking some shit here. Let me check it out. We got Clue.
An entire section of board game
Battleship.
movies. The two that I named. Okay.
Um,
Does the list stop there?
no, it said there's 4. So,
The special
so
editions
there's
or
Clue, Battleship.
Same.
Apparently there's I don't
two
know if
more
this got-
unnamed, or maybe they're in production.
Yeah, there's apparently a Clue, another Clue. That's
Candyland has to be made into one.
involves Ryan Reynolds, Rhett Reese, and Paul Wernick.
Coming out, like,
I don't know.
okay.
And there's apparently Monopoly as well.
Monopoly.
Movie centers on a boy from the game's modest Baltic Avenue on a quest to make a fortune.
Holy shit.
Vineet Dewan, Andrew Nichol, and Bennett Schneider. I don't know if that's one that's supposed to be in development.
What happened? Does he, like, go to jail at one point for
God, I hope so.
traveling too far on a street or something? Because,
I hope so.
like,
He just goes through every stoplight, and it's like,
Because he rolled too many doubles, and he's like, "Oh no, I can't stop my car."
yeah. Did you play like that when you roll too many like
Well,
doubles?
those are in the rules. If you, I
Okay.
think if you roll 3 times in a row or
you go
something,
to jail. You're going too fast.
See, now we're talking about board games. We're not talking about the movie, which is
There's
fine.
a-
But this is what you're getting, folks.
There's
It's all part of the
actually
package.
Candyland movie called Candyland: The Great Lollipop Adventure.
Well, that makes like a
Why are we
CG.
watching that?
Adam Sandler was developing a big screen Candyland movie, but that's caught up in a legal battle.
I don't-
with Hasbro and Landmark Entertainment.
I don't want that.
Battleship, Monopoly.
We always come back to
So
Battleship.
not Clue.
Battleship's not really a board game though. It's like
would
a
you count?
strategy
Would you
game.
count?
Oh, that
Dungeons
is
and
totally
Dragons?
a board game.
Would you count Dungeons and Dragons?
It's pen and paper.
But that-
Yeah,
that
I
can
guess
be
we'll
a board
count
game.
it. Well, it's a
Can
table.
be.
It's a tabletop game.
tabletop.
I
You can't
guess
have
we'd
a
count
board
that.
in pieces.
I guess we'd count that. But then we're getting into dangerous territory with like video game movies and stuff, and that's probably another topic for another time when we watch one of those.
What are these?
But Clue, all right. When you think of Clue, the board game, you think of like murder mystery. You don't think an awesome comedy from the '80s.
Of like mansion. It's like a bottle episode of like a soap opera because it has a lot like this the way the set and the way the characters look and everything has a very classical look, and it's all very kind of true to the look of the board game most times. but then it's like farcical, and you have the silly music, and they're running from room to room like Scooby Doo.
But when people watch this, I don't think it was like, if we can look back on the trailer for it or like the promotion leading up to it, people didn't know that it was going to be like this, because I watch this every Halloween because it's like the creepy, dark, old house kind of tropey film where this ominous music plays when everybody's showing up at this dinner party.
Yeah.
It's not really happy, bubbly kind of music. Everybody's showing up and they're all like suspicious, like, oh, you don't have to tell me your real name.
It really does have this like very, very like not even that tense. It puts everybody together and puts this mood upon the film and like the party itself that's taking place there that just gets you really ready for like a murder mystery kind of thing. And then that continues, like the murder mystery continues, but then there's also that like great comedy on top of that.
Yeah, and
So
like I'm saying, with the beginning where it's all ominous and spooky, there's just that underlying joke of somebody stepped in dog shit and everybody's smelling it when they get there. They're like taking off their coats and they just have that face. They're like, they're checking their shoes. Like, do I have it?
Dude, I honestly haven't seen this movie since I was a little boy.
It's been a few years for me as well, but
I watch it every year. It's so good every time. Every time I watch it, I find something new and I look for things, and
yeah,
I know the turnout every time, but I just love how it all
plays out in the end.
All comes together, and they have multiple endings too,
I'm
which
going
is great.
to go home and have sex with my wife.
Yep. He's like when he's when he says, we'll probably talk about this afterwards, but when Michael McKean basically is like, all right, I'm going to come clean now, like before the Wadsworth has the chance to do it for me. And he's like, well, I work for the government and I'm a homosexual. And and then Wadsworth's like looking through his papers like, that's not in here. None of this is in here.
Don't they like consult the script at some point? Or like
in the film?
Yeah, there's like a fourth wall break where they like I'm getting, maybe I'm not thinking about that correctly, but I thought there was like at the end when they're doing the multiple endings and stuff, there's one where there's like a slight fourth wall break or some acknowledgement of,
or yeah, they like give a wink to the camera or something.
Something like that, I think. Yeah. A little hey guys, we're having fun here.
Yeah. I think that's probably when he says, now I'm going to go home and sleep with my wife. And they play Shake, Rattle, and Roll. Yeah, but it's a good time. It's a good comedy just all around.
It's a great cast is what helps brings it together.
Tim Curry was...
If like I think still this film can be put on stage and it would be the same thing. If you had a character like Tim Curry playing that manic, spastic, chaotic butler guy that's like kind of going everywhere and just going mad. I mean, he's so compelling in this. You just love it.
I just had a thought. Every character in this movie except for Tim Curry is a character from the board game, like Professor Plum, Miss White, Miss Peacock,
all the main guys. Yep.
And then Tim Curry's just in there, and he's kind of the main character. There's so much focus on him in the movie that he's kind of the main character.
The butler boy.
And he's almost a surrogate for the player of the game because he's, like you said, he's going around everywhere. He's investigating everything. He throws out theories. He's trying to like prod some people to
the
suspect
Sherlock
other
of
people.
everything.
Yeah, like he's the surrogate for the player of the game where he's going through all these different scenarios in his head, and he's putting together all these clues and having all these wild scenarios happen around him that he's just kind of like reacting to everything, which is why in the end it's like at the end of the board game. Like you have to present what you think the evidence is, and then you could be completely wrong or you could be right. And they have the different multiple endings of like the presentation of the evidence and all this. And
and they do it in that old timey style where they're like, all right, they have that happy bubbly music and they go through the whole night and they kind of run through the events.
Mrs. White went into the kitchen. Like, yeah.
And she didn't hear him because Mrs. Peacock was screaming. You didn't hear the stab of the cook.
He's running like from room to room as he's explaining it, and they're all following him. And it
has that like that tropey, yakety sax kind of like everybody's running across the hall to the other room.
Like they go through enough iterations of that explanation where he's like he's giving them the short version where he's just like sprints into a room and just shouts like 2 words where he's like Miss Peacock and then immediately sprints back out of the room and like
And then he
they're all just like
he
yep, yep.
recreates the actions from the night, like, well, because I can just play this throughout my head right now. I can just do everything.
Mm-hmm.
He like Mr. Green slaps Mrs. Peacock, and he's like, I gotta stop her screaming.
Yes.
And Tim Curry does that same thing. He puts Mr. Green down, slaps him, pretending that he's Miss Peacock, and he's like, I had to stop her from screaming. Like everybody gets their comeuppance when he like going through the events.
Right.
And I just like there's other people on the cast. Like my favorite's Christopher Lloyd because Professor Plum's always been my favorite,
Yeah.
and for some reason,
It's
like,
been
he's
so long
super young in this movie.
since
Like,
I've seen this movie that
You didn't know
completely
you forgot
he was
Christopher
in there.
Lloyd's
yeah.
in it?
Yeah.
When you said that, I was like, oh shit, yeah.
yep,
But yeah, it was
Professor
like
Plum.
84, 85. That was like the same, around the same time he was on. He did a guest spot on Cheers too.
Yeah.
That time.
He's probably
Where
in
he
like
looked-
Taxi.
Well, yeah, and I was gonna say
young,
when he was on probably around the same, like near the same time as Taxi, because I
Yeah.
remember him being pretty young looking
But I mean,
comparatively
because
on
he
that.
was. I mean, you don't think of him as young in the 80s because of fucking Back to the Future, but he was younger there. He just.
Oh, yeah.
They just made him look old.
Yep.
But well,
Well, I would say we should get right into this film, huh?
get up, go.
Let's
Get
do
up,
it.
get
Just
go.
and then,
Yeah.
like, it's always fun watching movies that we know is gonna just be an enjoyable time the whole way through.
Yeah.
Yes.
And any complaints I could ever have about this movie, I kind of don't care because the stuff that I just enjoy so much and for so many different
Right,
reasons.
supersedes things.
Yeah, and there's
Well, that was just like with we watched Rockadoodle last. That was just it. Was like I could have complained about a bunch of things in that
Yeah.
movie, but I don't care.
what's the point?
What's
There's
the point? That was a pure nostalgia fest of a movie I loved when I was a little boy.
when you're swimming through a pool of honey, there's bound to
Doesn't
be
do
a,
anything
a
with
couple
Popeye?
flies
Yeah,
in
it
there.
doesn't do any good.
Oh yeah, the same thing with Popeye. Like, what is the point in picking
I won't
apart
ignore
something that is like? I can definitely understand somebody having negative things that they could say about it, but like at the end of the day,
It's like whatever.
yeah,
Just watch.
it's not trying to like
Whatever.
be bigger than its britches. Like somebody might make an argument like, we could say the same thing about like the first Transformers movie. Why get upset about it? And it's like, well, that's trying to be like.
This is taking
Something
an
very
already established medium of a board game, and then people what they expect, and kind of flips it on its head and says, you know, it's a fucking comedy.
Right,
Yeah.
That's something nobody had done yet.
They don't take
at that
themselves too
point,
seriously,
you know?
which is like as an example again, the Transformers movie. They take themselves very seriously in that movie,
Yeah.
and they ask the audience to as well. With like the Xbox turning into a Transformer and the Mountain Dew machine and stuff, and like
Shooting little cans at kids.
yeah, it gets a little. Oh, I've been betrayed.
All right. Well, we've been beating around the bush a little bit, so let's jump
stop-
into the
let's
movie.
Stop abusing that foliage.
I'll beat that bush.
All right. Let's jump into it, boys.
Hey, get a clue.
And now, our feature presentation.
Well, that was Clue.
I had no clue.
So when you guys played Clue, who was your character that you like to grab first?
Colonel Mustard.
Just because he
I
sounded
was a
cool.
Mustard Man. Yeah. That was a great name.
I think I was always Mr. Green or Professor Plum.
I was always Professor Plum.
Yeah.
Every time.
I think at the time I just really liked Green, so I was Mr. Green. And I liked the picture of the guy, Mr. Green. He looked kind of badass.
I like the picture of the guy of Mr. Professor Plum because he always looked bewildered. He was like, "No,
Oh, with his pipe.
who done it?"
Which was kind of cool. The Mrs. White in the board game was always the maid, but in the movie Clue, it was like another just lady that wore a veil and was white or had like a white coat lining. So they went off the beaten path with some of the characters. Miss Peacock was always Miss Peacock, kind of a weird old lady.
I know who that guy was now. That played the chief.
Chief?
Howard Hessman is his name, but he played Dr. Johnny Fever on WKRP in Cincinnati in the 70s. TV show about a radio station.
Oh yeah, I remember that name. I never watched the show, but I remember that name.
He's in a lot of other stuff, but that's what I first knew him from. Was that? He's been a bajillion.
So
There was a lot that I did not remember about this movie, or at least that.
It was
Definitely.
like watching a new movie to me because I hadn't seen it in so long.
Yeah,
Really?
and a lot of the jokes I definitely went over my head when I was a kid. Like there was one in there about like no sex after marriage and just stuff that like it's
yeah.
a funny movie in general.
That was Madeline Kahn, where she's like, it's like something comparing sex after marriage.
Yeah.
Life after death is like sex after marriage.
And it's just the way that everything is delivered and the situations that happens and like the physical comedy, especially closer and closer to the end,
Right.
gets to be really good. So you don't really have to get the jokes. It's still a funny movie.
Well, like we were talking about while we were watching it, like the pacing of it. Did we bring that up yet?
Yeah.
The pacing of how it just starts like a slow, like I don't trust you, like
Slow burn.
burn, and then once it gets going after the death happens, then it's just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
People
it's
keep dying, and you're worried about the people dying and like who killed those people. But after a while, more people keep dying. The body count gets so big where you're like, I forgot that person died. Like there's so many
Yeah.
people that just you forget about that got
yeah.
killed.
The cop or whatever,
The cop, the drunk guy,
Yeah.
the cook. You forget about her. You forget about Mr. Body for some of the film.
Yeah,
and then
they're-
the singing telegram girl.
Yep.
there was a lot about like who died and how many people died that I didn't remember. And
Yeah.
She was played by, what was her name? Was it Dee Dee Con- like the chick who was Frenchie in Grease.
Frenchie. Oh yeah,
The one
yeah,
with
yeah.
the pink hair.
Huh.
She was the singing telegram girl.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just so fast,
Yeah, it ramps up.
and then like the apex being when fucking our boy
Wadsworth.
when he goes on his fucking epic, fucking this is how it happened, fucking rundown.
Yep.
Just
That's the part of the movie
Mwah.
where I'll go back to and just watch that part, because if you watch anything in that movie, it all winds up to be this huge explanation of the events of the night done really spastic and chaotic, and he's just like,
Yeah.
here's how it all went down, and he just breaks it all down for these dimwits.
in the kitchen for like a millisecond and turn around and fucking
Yep.
off.
Yep. He's going a mile a minute, and it's funny because at the end of that first time he's breaking it down, and it's been like 10 minutes almost of it. Everybody's just standing in the middle of the hall, and they're not even following him into rooms anymore. They're just standing in the hall, and they're watching him go from room to
He's
room, and
ping
like,
ponging it, just
yeah,
back and forth, and he's jumping out of the passageways and like pretending he's dead and falling down, and people are like, "Where'd he go?" He falls into their arms and stuff, and yeah, he kind of makes the film. Like everybody else is kind of supporting him,
Yeah.
and he's just so off the wall.
he's
and
he's
crazy.
almost the main character, like with
Yeah.
how much involvement he has. It's definitely an ensemble cast and an ensemble like
And
performance that
he's
everybody
our hero
gives,
for
but
the whole film. He's our hero.
And like I was saying when we were watching it too, I forgot I forgot Christopher Lloyd was in it.
Mhm.
And you're like, oh yeah. And then like fucking Martin Mull and Michael McKean, and I was just like, fuck, how the only person I remember
Yeah, I
was in
didn't-
it was our boy.
yeah.
Tim Rhymes
And then
Furry.
and then the
Delicious foods.
what was the name of the actress who played Miss Scarlet?
Miss Scarlet?
Leslie Ann Miller or something like
Yes, Leslie
Some-
Ann
yep.
something. Warren.
that. Warren.
I was saying while we were watching it that I had some confusion that I remembered that Miss Scarlet was played by Sigourney Weaver, Miss Sigournus, but it turns out it was not, and they do look slightly similar, but I think even as a child, like I was saying, that I think I still had that mistaken, which is why it stuck in my
Right.
head so much. And
Right. Well, and Miss White also was fucking Stoop in Blazing Saddles,
Yeah, Madeline Kahn,
and Elizabeth in Young Frankenstein.
Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, Madeline Kahn. Yeah. A lot of. There's some deep roots there.
Yeah.
Deep comedy cuts.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're all kind of dry humor-ish
Yeah.
type of comedy too.
Yeah. Yep.
From what I recall, yeah, Madeline Kahn wasn't really like
It's Mel Brooks movies.
too zany.
It's dry as a desert.
Yeah, totally. But it's like quirky and offbeat, like she
Right.
was in this.
Right.
And Miss White is like, you can tell she's a psycho, like, cause she's just like her wide eye.
This
She castrates men.
this is definitely quirky and offbeat because, like the dinner scene, they spend maybe a minute and a half or 2 minutes on each different like course and each different like piece of the meal that they're having, and I noticed one thing that was kind of funny, like each different person had like some habit of how they were eating. Like Mrs. White was slurping really loudly on her soup when they were having like pudding or something like that. Colonel Mustard had a just giant heaping amount of it on his spoon, and like
Say
I think
custard, so I could say Colonel Mustard eating custard.
I think like
There you go.
Professor Plum was like stabbing at his food a lot or like playing with it. Like they each had a specific thing, and that was just neat.
That's dimensions to the
yeah.
character.
And I can only imagine how many times you can watch that ending explanation, that entire sequence, and only watch one character to watch that like their performance throughout the thing, or just to like see what they do, and then you can watch that for each character that's in those scenes, and like there's so many different things you can pick up on.
Right. Oh yeah. Endless.
Yeah, that's why I said that would be really good for this to be just transplanted to a stage, like
Right.
3-act type of format, because it would work so well. You just put everybody in this hallway room basically, and he just ping pongs back and forth between
Right.
these little sets, and yeah, people come on and leave stage, but like
Well,
when
Tim
somebody
Curry
dies.
is a stage actor as well. That comes through in that.
And I love how it just takes place in the house.
That making it feel like that way too.
It's an old dark house kind of feel. It doesn't leave. It's just you're in this locked out, stormy house.
But
Well, it helps too that the house itself is interesting, and that it's not like
Yeah.
a big house, but they don't put any attention to detail or any effort into it, where it's like big but empty. This is very lived in, and each room does feel different. Like some of the color palettes, maybe just like it's kind of hard to get away from when you have like a lot of wood grain and things that are generally used in like that kind of architecture and that kind of aesthetic, where it's more fancy and grand and stuff. Yeah, exactly, like fur
Like
rugs and
huge atrium kind of style. This wasn't like huge, but it had like a big.
the hall was
open hallway.
relatively. But then you have
But it
like
seemed
the
more like the-
lounge,
the
the
board
kitchen, the it was every, I think, room mentioned except for
secret passage. They even have the secret passageways.
Yeah, from the kitchen to the study, from the billiard room to the lounge or whatever.
one thing that I absolutely didn't remember. Like obviously there's like obviously remembering this movie, there's a lot of deaths in it, and there's a lot of like events around what happens with those deaths. But I, for some reason, just didn't even think about, like, of course they would be using the instruments of death from the game, like the rope, the candlestick, the gun, the wrench, all that stuff. And it's kind of cool how they do it in the movie. It's just, like, presented to them each
Well,
as individual gifts.
yeah.
And Tyler pointed out that they're all the weapons they use are all the ones that they're given in the beginning. Like
so it
it's not-
tells you, like, right away pretty much. But
who's using what.
yeah, they also just, it's such a convoluted discussion the entire way through that it is possible that you're like, well, any one of them could have used it. And so,
I think the only one I might be wrong with was Christopher Lloyd. He got the gun,
Oh yeah.
and he didn't shoot Mr. Body, because at the end it's revealed that Mr. Body was actually the real butler and Wadsworth was actually Mr. Body. So they did like a role reversal switcheroo
Yeah.
on the audience. So like, he's like, "Who did I kill?" And Mr. Body's like,
wait,
"Well, you killed my butler,
I forget then, who shot the singing telegram person?
Wadsworth. I shot her."
Yeah.
At the like the true ending, he shot her.
Uh-huh.
But in the fake and
The first fake one, he at the first, yeah, it was Professor Plum. He's like, I shot her. I had an affair with her. She
So
was
in
a
a way,
patient.
he did.
Yeah, he used the gun in that one.
Yeah.
But by the end, all of them used their weapon they were given at the beginning, and they all get used. So it's pretty cool how they
And the-
utilized all the
The
deaths.
cheeky ending with Michael McKean, like the ending.
Yeah, the true.
And who killed whatever it was me in the
hall with the revolver.
Yeah, how you actually claim or
Present it.
you present
Yep.
it at the end of the game if you want to do it.
Now I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife.
That's like the
Well-
thing people should do now. Every time they finish Clue, I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife.
And it's like when you present it that way and your information is correct, the game ends.
Yep.
So somebody asked like a question about like who killed this person or who killed Mr. Body. That's the objective of the entire board game.
Yep.
He answered the question correctly with each of those details. Movie's over.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like
pretty much.
Well,
that,
that's
that right there was the entirety, pretty much, of Clue.
I just love that it freeze frames immediately after the fucking. Now I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife.
He
Poof.
he like barely gets to turn 180.
Yeah.
Even like
Yeah.
he.
Yeah.
He just like
Face
looks
thing.
and he's mid turning away from the camera and
It's-
he's like stares at the chief and like he's.
Yep.
Moves
It's
over.
Down.
But that's pretty much the last sentence of the movie is him
Yeah.
claiming all these people did it and he killed Mr. Body.
Yeah, and even though the alternate endings or whatever can serve as the person guessing based off of their clues or whatever.
Yeah, so it
being
did.
wrong.
It utilized a
another
lot.
one,
Yeah,
guessing they were wrong, going back.
they utilized a lot of the game mechanics
Yeah.
in the storytelling, which was awesome.
Yep.
And they like at the very end, like the true ending, you think when you play the board game, like, who killed this innocent man? Why'd you do this? And it's so suspicious. Everybody around you is like, who did this? And then in the movie, it turns out that he wasn't an innocent man. He was Wadsworth. He was blackmailing all these people. He was doing bad things. So you're just like, oh, good twist. You made Mr. Body seem like he should be killed. And
And to just going back to when we were talking about like the pacing or whatever, how it goes from the slow and then it starts getting going. It's kind of like the game too, where it's like this happened.
The more clues
on
you
this
get.
person, and then people start okay.
yeah, you got to get to your
turn.
turn. Like, all right,
Clue
show me your
collecting.
card. And you're like, okay, good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm
yes.
trying to think. Is there any sort of parallel for a player showing another player a card? Like, not really.
Oh, in the movie, like like how you translate that mechanic to the movie.
I'm just trying. Yeah, I was just trying to think of like.
If they did it at all.
Yeah. Maybe not. Unless the key was a big thing. Like, you see a key being thrown out the door, but he like
Like
actually
the-
slips it into his pocket. It was actually probably the key to the front door.
And then somebody else takes out the real key from his pocket and replaces it with a fake key, and
to the door where all the weapons are.
yeah. I think that this movie works best as like how it is, where they know that it has to be silly and they know that it has to be over the top and kind of a mile a minute, and a lot of things need to happen, because what else are you going to do with this content if you don't basically just give, like, it was a good idea to make it a comedy, because then they could hire all these people that they know can either be funny or deliver what they want them to deliver, and it's basically just letting comedians be comedians in this one specific
Yeah,
way.
they
And
went
that's like
full
with the
bore.
game too. Is it gets kind of funny as people are
They,
answering things
I
as
think
they
a good
characters or like
a good maybe deviation from the comedy, but in the same vein as Clue, would be like the film Identity, where all these people are like
Oh,
on a
yeah.
Hitchcock set, and it's a murder mystery basically, and you try to figure out which one of these people killed somebody, and it's more thriller, psychological thriller type movie.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Clue the movie would have been good if they went full on thriller.
I'm if it was a thriller or a more like serious quote unquote
like
adaptation.
like the new Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's more like that.
Exactly. If it was something like that, there would be, in the end, one person probably who committed the crime, but after a very convoluted kind of breadcrumb trail that we follow, it turns out to be one person who is either the mastermind or committed the crime or whatever. And I'm glad that that wasn't the case with this movie, that like they did go through those alternate scenarios, and then in the very, very end, each person there, except for Mr. Green, like participated in one of these murders, and it wasn't just like, oh, it was Miss Scarlet, and each character, and this it feels weird to say about murder, each character got their own chance to shine.
Yeah, true.
So like people who are fans of specific characters when they play the game get to see their character, like not have everybody gets to have an active role, and there's no real side character minus like the cook, who you said like just has the one line like dinner will be at 7:30.
That's it.
That's
And then she dies off screen,
Yeah, right.
but then they show like a flashback of her getting stabbed sometime.
what was the relationship that somebody had to the motorist? That's the
Oh, it was Colonel Mustard's.
yeah in the war.
Yeah, I knew him from the war.
As my driver on the wall,
The
Colonel Mustard.
the next board game they should do is goddamn near the same thing. The 90s ripoff of Clue, 13 Dead End Drive.
Oh yeah. I had an incomplete like version of that game that I bought secondhand and was
Okay.
missing pieces and cards and
this
stuff.
Would
and-
be a good way to kind of end this. Pitch your 13 Dead End Drive movie.
well, pitch your. He just gave his idea for a board game movie. What's your
Board
idea
game
for a
movie.
board game
Board
movie?
game movie?
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking when you said 13 Dead End Drive and how kind of a hassle it is to build.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Mall Madness,
Oh my god.
where
The little
there's a sale going
card
on.
reader
Yeah,
and the voice.
yeah.
and
Or
there's a sale in
the sunglasses store.
electronics.
Yeah,
Turn
yeah,
into a
yeah.
horror movie every time someone comes over the intercom and says that it's just a stampede of people.
It's
and people
madness,
get
yeah.
fucking
There's like a
trampled and
madness. Like
shit.
people are locked in this mall, and like people are going crazy for these sales, and like actually, they're being brainwashed by that intercom system where it's like telling them you have to buy more stuff. And
Psychological
yeah, it's-
thriller.
Okay, instead of us each giving one, can we just talk about this for a little bit? Because I'm actually having more ideas now that
Okay.
we're so. What was okay? Shoots and Ladders. It's gonna be like a Running Man type movie where it's a
starring The Rock.
hyper stylized, sure, starring The Rock, hyper stylized, like slightly alternate, like future world where there's a one event that everybody like wants to participate in. It's the huge thing where people just go through this like obstacle course of different ladders and slides and stuff, and it's all the big
Some
thing.
end in
And
death.
yeah, some end in victory and some end in
Sometimes,
death. And, like,
sometimes you go down a chute, and what you hit at the bottom is a wall of lasers.
and then the challenge is off
Hit
the
of snakes.
arena with his girl. I'm like, I don't know, babe. I think right now we're on a shoot, you and me. Like,
Yeah, shoot. We need to be on a ladder.
we
babe.
got to get on the ladder.
we got to climb to the top.
Or what about Hungry Hungry Hippos? Just a horror movie about like. Well, okay, so let's just use The Rock as our generic
Yeah.
star of all these movies. Goes down to Africa on a safari with another group, and they do something to maybe piss off some hippos, and then these hippos get real hungry.
They're all
and
voiced by different people.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Jack Black.
not only
Patrick Warburton.
and yes, one of them is Mindy Kaling. I don't know why.
And then some other obscure like.
Patrick
Bruce Valanche.
Patrick-
Oh no.
Patrick Stewart.
Matthew Perry or Patrick Stewart. Yeah, some British guy, like really prestigious.
Yeah.
Ian McKellen type. Yeah.
And the hippos will eat anything. And not only will they eat it, they'll eat it in a manner like Pac-Man, where they'll just like.
And they're like mutant hippos.
No, they're just like regular hippos,
Okay.
but they're
do
like
that
one's
anyway.
one's purple, one's got like a orange color, one's like green because they're different colors on the board. I don't know. We're gonna get into the actual branding in there,
Yep.
and like I said, it'll be like Pac-Man. So there'll be like, just imagine 4 different hippos going through an entire camp, just chomping down like entire tents, folding chairs, like literally in like just one bite, no mess, no crumpling, just
So
going
it's
down.
an action thriller.
Yeah, and like and because they're voiced by people, it's not like we can put The Rock or Kevin Hart or whoever else is a human in this in any serious danger, but it'll.
I was gonna say the way to defeat them would be throw spherical mines in their fucking mouth. Like
Jesus.
The balls that they get in Hungry Hungry Hippos.
No, they'll just be like, these
like
are super. No, it'll be super nutrient pellets, and they'll make them too full. Like if we feed them enough, so they have to get into little cannons and like. They pen in the hippos and they're trying to like shove them right down their gullet with these like little turrets, or they're just like boom 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 boom.
Yep. Well, they basically like run around with tennis ball shooters. They're just like tum, 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 shooting the pills at the.
What would the Don't Wake Daddy movie be?
That seems
the
like a thriller style.
Yeah, that would be.
Bam, 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 bam.
What was the okay? Let's get this out of the way. What was the hypothetical consequence for waking Daddy up? When was it just him telling you to go back to bed,
You have to start back from the start.
Start from the beginning, yeah. So back to your room, yeah.
You're trying to get to the fridge and back, or something.
or something like that? But there's also just like a, I don't know,
Don't Wake Daddy.
pretty negative connotation in that too. Yeah,
Don't Wake
hate to
Daddy.
say it, but don't wait, Daddy gotta
I
work
mean,
at
if
4
you
a.m.
take off his nightcap, he's awake. He's never
Yeah.
shut his eyes.
You gotta spring because he's spring loaded. You gotta just get him right back down there and tuck him in. Put
what
his
about
nightcap
what
on.
about Crossfire? As a film?
You get caught up in the
Crossfire.
I'd imagine that being like something like
Sci-fi.
super sci-fi 80s, like just like almost something Tron
Yeah.
meets like Far Cry Blood Dragon.
Yeah.
Something like that, just like
That's
where
what the-
it's people in giant like structures that move along walls that just like they have. It's like a giant game of Pong with obstacles and stuff in the middle, like
But
Crossfire.
you shoot pongs at obstacles to push them onto the enemy's zone.
Yeah,
What's
and they're
the,
just like moving along the walls in these little like rooms that they're in. An entire montage, like action, quote unquote, scene of them just moving along walls in these rooms, and one side's got red lighting, the other side's got blue lighting, and the main like theme riff
just
comes on, and everybody in the audience is like, "Ah!
Yeah.
Crossfire!"
What's the name of the game again? Where I feel stupid. I own this game.
Don't feel
Perfection.
don't feel stupid.
Perfection.
I was gonna say Perfection after we talked
The-
about Crossfire, but the one where it's like timed and you're like
Yeah, you have to
putting
put
all the
pieces.
parts in.
You make like an Indiana Jones type movie out
Yep.
of it, like a puzzle adventure Zelda type.
Oh, it's like a mystical thing where like
Each
we only have. What if it's like each space for the thing is like so big that you actually have to go find this thing and put it in the thing. It's not just like a small
Yeah.
or
but it's during like a solar eclipse.
yeah. So it's like we only have
much time.
35 hours or something like that, where it's
Yeah.
not that long a time, and it's like we gotta go.
And they're all like relics from different continents and
But
stuff.
it's
Yeah,
not-
you have to find the pieces and bring them there. Just
But
like
it's
grab them
not
and put them in.
for like the end of the world, and there's no villain that wants to take this power and use it.
It's just like it's like
there's a treasure
It's like
waiting.
an Indiana Jones. Type
Yeah,
thing. It's
yeah.
like, there's some archaeological.
Hey,
find
it's a
here. I
fun.
need to
It's a
know
fun.
what
Oh my God, the Constitution's hidden in my uncle's boot. Gotta go find it.
Indiana
I guess it's
treasure.
in my uncle's boot. We found it.
National Jones.
National Jones. Okay, hold on.
And
Let's think
Monkey's
of
Curse or something.
let's think of some other ones here. Another popular board game.
Well, I know some obscure ones that I
What
have.
about Guess Who?
Can you
Guess who would be like a
what's
fucking-
mystery?
A spy
Mystery.
thriller, or
Spy-
not thriller maybe, but like
No, just kind of
maybe
like,
something more dry.
like those
Does he have red
noir,
hair?
just a noir, like a just a noir movie
Yeah.
where it's a doppelganger, kind of like North by Northwest or something like that. or it's mistaken identity, and you're trying to guess who. But somebody's like,
Does he have blue eyes?
yeah, is your person a girl? So it's like boom, 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 boom. You just eliminate them after that.
What
I
you
would-
should do is combine the perfection thing, the mousetrap thing, and what's the one with the like the sticks and you have to pull them out?
Kerplunk.
Kerplunk, and like Jenga,
Holy fuck! This is
and just make those like the puzzles you have to solve in this movie.
oh my
Holy
God.
shit.
Just massive. Versions
Okay,
of
here
it.
it is. Here it is. The framework for this entire thing, okay?
Hands are up. Hands are up.
There's a tower,
Yep.
and the tower is made up of sectional rooms like
Yeah.
a Jenga tower.
Yeah.
And you have to make your way from either the top to bottom or bottom to top, solving different puzzles that involve the perfection shit, the mousetrap shit, like obstacle course,
Yep.
and just different things. And if you fail,
Ladders
Don't
be
break the
there.
ice.
if you
Don't break the
fail,
ice.
Ice or ants in the
the
pants.
room
Ants in the
moves out of the
pants.
tower, and if enough rooms move out of the tower, the
crumbles.
whole tower goes down and everybody dies.
If you fuck up, the room you're in gets fucking jettisoned out.
So, how many of these games?
It's a lot.
Jenga's owned by who? Hasbro?
Milton Bradley.
Milton Bradley?
Pretty sure.
Okay.
I just had. I like.
So, how many of those
like,
did we
Rain
just
Manned
name?
the
Like,
case of that.
we could totally just pitch this thing as like the Milton Bradley verse
Yeah.
movie, where it's like,
The Bradley verse.
Welcome to Jenga Tower.
I like the Bradley
Well,
verse.
The Bradley? No, the MB verse. That's what it is.
Beavers.
We can't leave out Milton. We gotta go. Like,
Yeah, the MB
It can't be just
verse.
Brad. The Brad verse.
MB verse.
The Brad verse. Hey, you check out the new Brad
No, I
verse
said
movie.
Bradley. Like I think Bradley is more prestigious than just the Brad verse.
The
But yeah,
Bradley verse.
But I like MB verse.
And Beavers.
M Beavers.
Oh look,
the
there's
short-
a dam.
the shorthand.
And Beavers.
MB verse. It's those damn beavers.
Okay. Any other specific or any choice
I don't know. I think that was my
game
my final like
board games?
like
That was your
that was my magnum
culmination.
opus, was
Yeah.
Combine all those oh shit games.
A
into
giant
one.
But it's
lightning.
that's,
like
they kind of
light
did
bulb.
that
What's the
with
one
the,
with the sneezing? The booger one. To do with the booger. No, his nose.
I remember that. Yeah.
crocodile dentist.
Forget that
Mr.
one.
Bucket.
I forget what it was.
Mr. Bucket.
Elephant the elephant.
Chicken limbo the one.
Oh, fuck, chicken.
Big fun. That's all that commercial was.
Yep.
I looked that up with Steve, and that is all that commercial was. It's just a family sitting in their house, and all of a sudden this animated chicken just comes in singing this like chicken limbo the one, big fun, and almost
Chicken
like
limbo.
that's all that just repeats and repeats and repeats. But he basically just like forces them to play chicken limbo, where they're hanging out, and then all of a sudden he just oh, it's time to play.
The final one. Chess the movie.
Chess the movie.
It's just
It's
a-
just Shakespearean play.
That's
it's just
war.
a Middle Ages. Yeah, it's
wa-
just Middle
yeah.
Ages war.
It's base up war. But and the pawns all win at the end.
I mean, that could actually be kind of neat.
Or a pawn
You
turns
know.
into a queen and fucks everybody up.
Oh, the pawn becomes the queen.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Cinderella, pawn becomes queen.
Any other board game? Any other board game?
No. I know there's a bunch that I'm thinking of, like Mastermind. That one's a pretty fun one.
I have like a labyrinth. one.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. What's the one with the little poppy bubble in it?
Trouble.
Trouble.
Pop-O-Matic Trouble.
What's the board game that I'm pointing
That's what I
to
was
at
gonna say, I
my?
was like, the Thing board game. I'd like
Yep,
to see a movie
the Thing
of that.
board game that
Yeah,
I'm
Thing
pointing
board
to on my
game.
shelf right now.
That
it'd
might
be
work.
really interesting if there was a movie
work.
version of that. Like,
could work.
they had,
Call me
you know,
crazy,
there's all these
but-
different characters that they list in the board game, and
They
it
all
seems
seem
like
pretty
such an
cool.
interesting scenario that it, you know,
Yeah.
It might work.
it's a shame, but
Maybe someday.
maybe someday.
All right.
Maybe
I've had-
someday we'll
I've had
watch.
fun.
I have to.
We'll watch another movie. Maybe someday
Maybe
we
someday
will.
We'll watch another movie. Yeah.
Well, you never know.
That's true.
If Clue has taught us anything, it's that this mortal coil does not stay with you long. It could go up like that at any time, whether it be due to Tim Curry, whether it be due to
Miss Scarlet.
Miss Scarlet, whether it be due to Sigournus.
Yep.
There's a lot of factors at play
There
here.
is.
Yes.
There's a lot of wanting to go home and sleep with your wife.
Or
That's
your
motivating. for you.
husband, or your other, because I will not specify.
Ooh.
I will not
I
specify.
will not specify.
Ooh.
I refuse.
I refuse to specify this.
my foot down.
Hotel Rwanda.
Yes.
You're just saying what you're seeing right now.
Yep. We don't need to continue doing that because that'll just be nonsense. But that was Clue.
There you go.
Would you guys recommend Clue?
Yes.
Yeah, watch Clue. Watch it on a rainy day or like a spooky night in October. With
Definitely watch Clue. Watch it with
The
friends.
score I give this movie is rather high. It's almost untouchable.
Shut your mouth.
The
He's
score?
just reading titles of other movies.
This
that
movie
are in
really
front
had
of him right now.
some
the
true grit.
Yeah,
Okay, well-
there was a clear and present danger in that movie.
There's
you
no
don't know.
coming back from this,
I
ladies
mean, this
and
one was a
gentlemen.
fighter.
It's just you and me now. That we've lost both Tyler and Bradshaw. So
Just speaking from your angel
It's like
first.
sitting on an angel's perch.
they're slowly losing steam.
It's
I
too
think-
Don't
late.
knock my hustle and
It's
flow.
too late / too early. So
I have the remote, and I'm not going to refresh or change the screen, so we'll
Leave a
run out of
stick in the
movies
mud.
to say.
he's being the mud. He's got a hustle and flow on
There's
this.
still one title on there, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm waiting for them to work in, but they are having trouble. So we'll see how much of this remains in the episode here. But
I got to tell my buddy Hugo about this.
that's stretching.
Well,
That's
I-
real stretching.
That's what I was like, well, there you go.
I mean, we're sitting in a clear and present danger
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Wilson at the helm here.
Are we just going to keep repeating everyone?
Yeah, I'm letting you make a little bit of fools of yourselves here. So.
All right.
We can sign off.
Pretty good, yeah. that's
Oh
good.
yes, now's the time.
Yeah.
So
Puns are done.
puns are done. The day is done. Movie's done. Time to wrap it up for now, and we'll be back with another reel to reel at a
Yep.
different time with a different movie.
Be a loyal American.
Goodbye.
Bye.